let these tanks head maps a mistake, because these infantry are being wiped out. So I had to get these vehicles up front.
Battle control initialized.
Hello there, comrades and cannon fodder. It's Dvoid here. I've got a 1v1 multiplayer game. We're on cow level map for this one. I'm using Russia, my opponent's using England. I'm in red in the top right here, my opponent's got the purple colour in the bottom left. Now when I place my barracks, I like to train a couple of rifles to place here, and I trained 3. And I place them to secure the oil derrick. But the thing is, for my engineer before it arrives, but the thing is your engineer could be trained first and get a quick capture, and by the time the enemy can reach this point over here, you can have rifles in position. But I like to secure the area with a few rifles and then send them ahead. So it delays the engineer by a few moments, but these rifles can move out now. My opponent's sending a couple of rifles over here. Now that's move command, you should never do that. I've got the capture underway. My opponent hasn't got an engineer. Oh, there they are, yep. There they have, yeah. Right, so they've just got the capture started. I've already got my oil derrick, so I'll learn a little bit in the meantime. Now I'm sending the bulk of my rifle force over to this side of the map, and it looks like my 2 rifles have caught the enemy engineer. So I've interrupted their capture. They've got a medic there. So that worked out nicely. It's useful having rifles early. And yeah, it does delay some engineer captures on your some oil derricks for certain maps, but it's worth it if you can get the enemy engineer, because it'll cost them even more time. And my opponent has got the second refinery ready to place. There you go. And I've got my war factory building. But on this map, look at my engineer. He's been caught out by 2 enemy rifles, so we've both lost our engineer. Now my opponent has trained a second engineer, and they've got him stood there. Yeah, there you go. He's capturing now. So we'll soon have 1 oil derrick each. I lost that engineer there. I've just started to train rocket soldiers. My opponent hasn't got any by the looks of it. They've got a medic. About to place the war factory soon. My opponent's slightly behind, about 10 seconds on the war factory construction. There you go. Now I've got the APC building. I've got a few rockets there. Sending out rifle guards, look. They're even to the back of the map, because sometimes players can hide units at the back and wait till you're distracted, you know, in the middle of the map before they use them. So especially when there's multiple ore patches, because with a 3 refinery build, you need to place a refinery at each ore patch. There's no point having 2 at one. You know, you may as well place them, which means when you want to place refineries to mine from each patch here, you need build reach to make sure they can be placed right next to these ore patches. There you go. There's a small starting army starting to form. My opponent's engineer's there, look. Look how close he is to that rifle. And I'm guarding this oil derrick here to make sure the enemy's not captured it. Or if they do, at least that I know about it. My opponent's got a ranger still. There's the light tank. Looks like they're going on a little scouting trip. And at this point, I should have sent a couple of rifles to investigate the enemy base. Just point out where power plants are, things like that, so I can use a Gren drop or something. Or at least that I have the option to. Yeah, they've quickly mined that, but when you mine this ore patch here, when it starts to regrow, it regrows as crystals. So I do like to mine that patch out as quickly as possible. And then let it start to regrow and send your ore trucks here to this main patch. And then when this regrows, you'll have a nice amount of crystals in no time. And my main starting army is over here looking for enemy expansions early, but still. Never mind. I haven't even built my MCV yet. But you never know, some builds get one earlier. You could build 2 refineries and then a service depot after the war factory straight away, and get an early expansion out. So it's worth checking just to make sure. But my opponent has killed a rifle guard, so I'm aware that this force is here, and they're using these 2 vehicles to screen and spot for them. But I've got my MCV here, but I'm aware of this force because they killed a rifle guard. So, I've got my forces here waiting, look, and ready. The MCV's moving out. Well, it's not going far, look, because I need to escort it. I know there are enemy units around. I don't want to run straight into the enemy. Now, I've destroyed their oil derrick with this small starting army. But it's now moving to group together with these units I'm training and escort the MCV safely. These guys have turned back though because the enemy attack is on. But I've got a flame tower and a heavy tank screening, and they've got no rocket troops on, so you've got no hope of getting past these. If they had double the amount of infantry, it wouldn't matter, because you're not getting past them without rockets and tanks. It's just not happening. And I thought, well, they've lost a small chunk of forces for nothing, absolutely nothing, so I'll send out nearly everything. And I'm moving these rifle guards, look, so they're going to check the area and make sure I don't run straight into an enemy army and lose this, for example, for nothing. So, they have found... There, they've destroyed it. But they're setting up the construction yard. I don't think he would have spotted it, that rifle guard. No, not quite. Sadly. But I've got some grenadiers, and I sent the APC back. Go, I've found one more truck, but look at this tank, it's just being hit by loads of bullets because there's no rocket soldiers in there, so I'm going for a few pushes. No harm in that. And look, they've got their MCV out there and the ore trucks, but the ore trucks have run straight into the bulk of my army. Ouch. 3 ore trucks very quickly lost. Ouch. And nothing mining at the main expansion. They do have a decent amount of ore left here, though. And look at the gems. They've left that there, although it's got no health left. And I've left 2 rocket soldiers and 3 rifles, just in case the enemy sends an ore truck back here, to this ore patch here. So I've got something to attack them and cause a distraction. I'm bringing forward some more reinforcements with an MCV. And I've left that on purpose, obviously. My viewers will know that I like to use thieves and use an engineer to hold the refinery from being sold. That's my thinking here. I don't have thieves yet, but because expansions are still important this time, but that's why I haven't destroyed it, I'm holding it. Now while this is going on over here, I've got to fall back and make a defence. I'm attacking here. Now there's 1 ore truck gone, there's 2 ore trucks. 3 ore trucks gone. 4. Refinery's gone. Power plant, very nice. Now I thought I'd put my grenadiers in the APC, so I was going to fight the enemy and use the grenadiers to destroy structures. When I saw these guys coming and I was in between defences, I knew I was in trouble. There's the grenadiers. I didn't put them in the APC. Now that's a problem, because the APC just died for nothing. And I got no extra damage on the structures from the grenadiers. So I thought I'll try and do what damage I can. Look, I've got a large force there building up, but I couldn't quite take out the con yard. Now these guys are idle. There's a couple of grenadiers in there, look. They could have destroyed that. And I'm attacking it now, but it's a bit late, so I've got to retreat and attack. And I thought I'm going for it. And my opponent has sold that refinery down there. But I'm building a radar dome now. My opponent's placed a radar dome. But yeah, I've got this forward expansion here. This is mining directly from what the enemy should have. But if we look at the economy, they've got 1 ore truck left. I've just done a lot of damage. There were 3 destroyed here and 4 or 5 destroyed here. So there you go. That's it. That's why it's so. That's why I've got so few. But I'm moving this force here, and now I have got thieves. Look, I'm training them, so I want to overrun the enemy and steal all the cash. But they haven't got much cash at the moment. But it's always good to take control of the enemy's economy. Now look at that. Thieves in trouble. My army in trouble. So I had to do something. That artillery piece is wiping my forces out. Look at that. So I thought, right, leg it. Lost a thief. That's 500 alone. That's big trouble. Now I thought this tank can at least make a nuisance of itself. You see, that force of mine was lost for very little. But now I've got more thieves. And my opponent's built up some cash. They've got more than me now. So you can quickly recover as long as you've got a few ore trucks. But those gems will help. But I left that heavy tank down there. Now look at this, my opponent's moved straight in to the attack and they're shelling my construction yard, and I thought rather than making a stand for a bit, because they've got artillery, I'm getting out there. So I had to abandon all that. My MCV's escaping at least, but I'm going to lose my newest expansion and the radar dome. See that heavy tank still there, look. I'm building up numbers of heavy tanks. There's a couple of thieves, look. My opponent's on 6 grand, I'm on 7, so they're doing well there. Lost the radar dome. That tank's still alive, look. Yeah, they're sending rocket soldiers. So now my opponent of the recovered power. Nice. I'm sending that to go over here, make sure there's nothing mining from there. Let's just have a look at the economy quickly. Yeah, 5,000 each. My opponent's back up to 4 ore trucks, I've got 6. I'm moving this MCV over here and placing a shady refinery behind the ore field, not in front of it. Now I've got an engineer there, and there's 2 thieves. And my opponent's moving north to cover that expansion. They've got an airfield there now. I mean a helipad. But I'm way ahead in army value. And the thief, I'll pause it for one moment. Let's just check how much cash my opponent's got. Yeah, they've got over 4,000. So yeah, there's just over 2,000 credits. The thief's running, the engineer's running. But I know where the enemy army is, so I'm gathering mine, and I'm counting on my heavy tank superiority. So that was a nice steal. It made it worth making the radar dome and training thieves, even though I've lost a few, because it takes the cash away from the enemy as well as giving it to me. So it has double value. It's not just that I get to spend it, it's that they spend time harvesting it and they don't get to spend it. That's the good thing about thieving. Look at that, their army melted because they didn't have heavy tank screening. I mean, they didn't have tank screening, main battle tanks. And there's that tank, look, it has been a nuisance. And there's a thief coming in, there's an engineer, so I've got the chokehold. This is just going to overrun this. There's nothing the enemy can do. And I'm going for the refinery. And the fact that it's not being sold, and that there's nothing... yeah, there, they've called it. GG, it was over. I've got the chokehold in effect. And I've got nearly 9 grand cash now because of that infiltration. But they can't sell that refinery now. And I was bringing my MCV forward for more infiltrations. You see, placing a barrack straight away, get thieves placed, and train, and send straight in there. But it's over, obviously, I know that. So I've let the capture run out, and I'm just wiping everything else. But there, I've got a primary production at my home base, because even though it's over, I'm not finished until the game is over properly. So there you go, that's it, that's the first video of this post, the first replay I should say. I'll go through the graphs and charts, but I'm going to add a second replay to this. My opponent did so well, considering the ratio of rockets they had at the start. They didn't have enough, they never had enough, but to be behind in army value for all the way through the game and put up a fight like they did at the start, that's really good. You know, fair play to them. And their earnings were okay, but with those ore truck losses, you can't recover from that. It's not possible. I'd have to make some serious mistake, but I've got 14 heavy tanks. I'd have to make some serious mistake to let my opponent recover from being knocked down to one ore truck. But I've got 14 heavy tanks. Yeah, they just weren't killing them after that attack down here, where I'd knocked out that expansion, and then when I built my own expansion down here and had to fall back, I'd just immediately built up too many tanks for them, and I never had more than one war factory, so they just weren't killing them after a certain point. Now, combat, I got 31,000 army value at the end. I killed 20 structures. My opponent killed 8, but I lost 7 structures. My opponent lost 21. That's a more accurate scale of how many structures we've destroyed, because if you run over fence sections or walls, sometimes that can count as a structure. But I killed 177 units. My opponent killed 246. With that, all that artillery work and how well they did at the start, it doesn't surprise me at all. But I got 59,000 credits worth of their assets I destroyed. They destroyed 48,000 credits worth of my assets. No support powers in effect. And I'm building the basics: heavy tanks, infantry, flame towers, standard stuff for the production. Well, I've got 8 ore trucks. I hung on to me oil derrick, managed to hang on to that. Didn't manage to take any of the others. But yeah, 8 ore trucks, hung on to my oil derrick. I earned 117,000 credits. My opponent earned 66,000 credits. That's not so good. I've got 12 grand cash. It's those infiltrations, they're brutal. But there's I was at 32 actions per minute. My opponent was at 38 actions per minute. And the scores are 599 to me, 439 to my opponent. There's all your stats and graphs and charts. But I'll go to a second replay, just so this post has got a bit more to it. Let's have a look. We'll go for this one.
Battle control initialized.
It is a repost of my previous attempt. And we're on cow level map again. I'm using Russia. My opponent's using Ukraine for this one. Let's have a look. I'm in red down here. Slightly different red. Bottom left this time. My opponent's in the top right, and they've got this sort of yellow vomit colour. And let's have a look at production. Straight into the infantry production for my opponent. And they are a few seconds ahead for building production, not much. And there you go, there's their engineer. See, they've got a couple of rifles covering the way. See, I couldn't reach that point. Even if I'd trained a rifle and went straight for it, I can't reach there by the time rifles can catch up with the engineer. But it is good to have a rifle as far forward as possible. Use them for scouting the enemy base and stuff. Now they're sending a couple of rifles that way, and they've only got a couple. They're going for war factory first. That's why they've got so few rifles. Which is why you should send rifles out to investigate and infiltrate the enemy base, do a bit of scouting. Because if I found out that they've got 4 riflemen, I would be hassling them now, you know. 17 seconds until they can place their war factory. Then they've got to build a vehicle, you know. And they've got that oil derrick guarded. They've got going to capture it now. My engineer was taken out on his way over here. No, he's still there. Look, there you go. I've got him. He's safe. I've sent in a couple this side. And got guards properly escorting them. But in my previous replay that I've just shown you, I lost my engineer to 2 riflemen placed here. Now this is a more thorough escort, less lazy, and this game was fought before the last one. This was fought a short while ago, so I did better here. than I did in my last game that was fought yesterday. Shouldn't get lazy and just send them. But my opponent's got 2 oil derricks, I've got 2. But my opponent went for War Factory first. Now they've got their second refinery. I should be placing my War Factory. Hurry up. It's ready to place. There you go. Now I'll get my APC underway. Yeah, I'm moving back with these rifle guards and the engineer, but I've got plenty of them in guard positions. Here, look, all over. And now my opponent has got some more infantry. They're also doing the same. So by the time I've got lots of rifles and stuff in guard positions, my opponent has that window for taking advantage and of them using the War Factory first build is very short window for attacking them. If you know they're going for War Factory first, a couple of grenadiers and 10 rifles would do wonders in their base early on. That would be nice, which is why you need to send rifles to scout straight away. Standard procedure. I've got my APC up front. Now 2 rockets. That's 4 hits. There you go, knocked out. Not good. I'd taken out one of their flak trucks and they're retreating. Got their engineer, but with no vehicle I can't attack up to this point because they've got the view range of the oil derrick, which they're using. Look, very well done. So I know I've got to fall back there. Plenty of guards, rifle guards in position though, so I should be aware of any enemy movements on my half of the map. That's still a passive guard formation. I should be further forward with my rifle guards, and they should have investigated the enemy base. Let's have a look. I've got all 3 refineries now. And my opponent has. Let's have a look at the economy, see how many. Yeah, I've got 5 ore trucks. My opponent's got 6 because they went for the War Factory first, which allows you to get building ore trucks earlier. They've got 2 refineries, look. And they're building the 3rd now. Right, well that's fairly late. But they've got 3 barracks. Oh, I have as well. Yeah, that's a bit late for... But they are actually harvesting with... Here, look. Long range harvesting. No, I don't like it. And my APC should have been up front because my opponent's got no rockets, or they've got 1 or 2 more arriving. But if that APC had been in the proper position, it would have been a different pattern. It would have survived a fair few seconds against all that and allowed me to do some damage. I've lost my engineer, he just trailed behind, but I'm using this force retreating to protect my construction yard, place base defences and make a stand. Get that away from the rocket soldiers. These flak trucks can pepper away at it all they want. And my opponent's wisely falling back. Let's just have a look at army values after that initial engagement. 6,000 to my opponent, 7,000 to me. And they're starting to chip away at some rifle guards. There's a second MCV for my opponent. And when, like I say, you've harvested the ore from here, you start to regrow gems. It's a very useful patch. Starts to grow nice and quickly. You can soon end up with a nice patch of gems. And you should always take advantage of it. You get a nice boost in income. Six ore trucks to me, 7 to my opponent. And I've packed up here. Now this is a poor choice of deployment for this MCV over here, because I should have used this one, my home base MCV, to set up a quick refinery and place it there, even if it means bringing the MCV back here to provide build radius to both areas. This one should stay up here and advance with my main army. You see, I'm moving out without MCV cover. I don't even have build radius on the area I'm falling back to, if I had to. So these forces have bumped into the enemy there. Doesn't look good. And our army values are at 14,000 each. And I've just lost a nice chunk of troops. So I've got to fall back, and I'm sending some units. Look, there you go, everything's rushing up there. It's not even attack move, it's move command to hurry. But I sent these 3 tanks. Now they're in move command because they're in attack anything stance, so they can shoot at anything as they go drive past it. So just I leave them in move order so that they don't stop to attack enemies and get, you know, overrun or killed. Right, I've fallen back here and made a decent defence of it. You see, I'm sending rifle scouts out to look for the enemy. But my tanks have found the main force of enemy ore trucks. Quite nice. Now, they have harvested most of this, so they can fall back, and it's not that much of a big deal. But it has distracted their main army. I should have trimmed away a few flak trucks. Only 1 heavy tank has arrived on scene. And their ore trucks look have moved to an eco-transfer. Oh, they've got a couple more heavy tanks, small force up front. But they are bringing an MCV with their forces here. That's actually going to an expansion. Here we go. It's the engagement. My opponent looks like they've got a larger force. No vehicles on the front line, that's not good. I'm going to have superior view range alone. Look at that. That's held the bulk of the enemy. Now I've got more vehicles arriving. I'm losing a fair few units, but once these arrive, that's it. Things are going to change. And my heavy tanks are still disrupting the enemy. They're still alive. That's drawn forces away from the front line. Now these guys, what are these guys up to? I would have regrouped everything about here if I was the enemy. Send me. Use the view range of the oil derrick for defensive purposes, get these guys back. See, I'm in a headlong rush, but I think they might be trying to get me in between 2 forces. All my tanks are moving this way to advance. That's bad. I've literally got the APC. Luckily it's a fairly small force of infantry, and my tank is drawing the fire. See, these guys are surrounded by 2 of my forces now, because I'm bringing these guys up with an MCV and a production line. See, I've got to fall back, and it's taking too much damage. It's taking a shot. I have to also deploy it, so it takes less damage when it does. And I've got to cover the MCV, I can't keep advancing. And I've left these forces intact, but I have very little choice. Now, moving forward, and moving between the enemy structures, this is dangerous. You know, my opponent's got forces that they can use to destroy me. And now their eco-transfer has run into trouble again. They're having to fall back. But look, plenty of gems have regrown, and there's these here, 2 ore mines. There's another ore truck gone. Place my airfield. There's a thief. Look, got shot. That's 500 wasted there. An engineer, look. And I saw the base defences and thought, right, turn back. There's no point wasting an engineer on a stupid chance. My opponent sold the refinery. See what credits they've got? Yeah, it would have been worth it. So they were right to sell that. But sadly, these 2 ore trucks have moved to behind enemy lines. They've sold up there. And I know I have to continue the advance. I've got primary production right at the front line. Just nothing at my base. I've got a couple of tanks being produced, so that's it. And I've got a larger army than my opponent. Now my infantry are too far behind these tanks. I've lost 2 already, there's 3 for nothing. Now my opponent hasn't got rocket soldiers there. They are training now, but it's not great. You need them in the front line. Army values are getting closer because I took those losses. I didn't need to take those losses. I was stupid. Look how many tanks I've lost. But the enemy are collapsing, slowly collapsing. They could have fallen back and fought behind the defences. That would have made all the difference. Continuing the advance. Bringing up an MCV. Need to get a barracks and base defences fighting with me in the front line. Starting to gain an advantage in army value again. My opponent's literally fighting with what they're building. As soon as these base defences go down, I'm in big trouble. Now there you see I've got base defences of my own now. Infantry production at the front line, and my opponent's called it at that point. They've got no army strength. They can't attack where I'm vulnerable, they're just... that's it. There you go. And that's it, my opponent's called it. So I'll go through graphs and charts. Look at that army graph, blimey, that was a close one. But that peak in the middle, very nice. My opponent maybe shouldn't have started with a few flat trucks and just had tanks instead. But they did sort it eventually, but yeah. So there's the army graph, there's the earnings graph, quite even the earnings. I've got a fairly basic army, fairly small one. It's only 12,000 army value. These are the losses I took. I've lost a couple of structures, my opponent's lost 13, although there's going to be a lot more structures lost obviously by the time I've swept up the dregs. But I killed 329 enemy units, my opponent killed 280. There's 330 enemy units now. I destroyed 74,000 credits worth of their assets, 75. My opponent destroyed 59,000 credits worth of my assets, so they did well there. I placed an airfield, so I've got paratroopers and spy plane counting down, although I didn't produce any aeroplanes. Standard production underway still, except I've got a thief training, heavy tanks, flame towers. And we've both got 2 oil derricks, look, each. Neither of us targeted our opponent's oil derricks, but I've got 8 ore trucks, my opponent's down to 3. And I earned 133,000 credits, my opponent earned 108,000 credits. And I've got 23,000 credits left at the end. Very nice. I was at 30 actions per minute, my opponent was at 39 actions per minute, and there's our scores, 870 to me, 590 to my opponent. Now up to 24,000 credits now, very nice. But there you go, there's the basics, graphs, stats and charts, etc. Hope you enjoyed that one. And there's the end of those 2 replays for you. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, give us a sub and a like. And thank you very much for watching. So, take good care of yourselves. For now, thank you and goodbye.
Battle control terminated.